Death Stranding is the most divisive game in recent times. Scores are literally all over the place. The game is very unique, completely different from anything else I, or pretty much anyone else, has played. So let's talk about it. Let's start this review by answering a question. What is Death Stranding? Well, Death Stranding is a game about making connections with people to rebuild the United States of America. You do this by delivering packages that will help them out. The gameplay is the ultimate walking simulator. You spend the majority of your time walking great distances to complete the delivery. It's easy to see why the game is so divisive now. Kojima made Metal Gear Solid for 17 years, and when he announced Death Stranding, people were probably expecting it to be like that, and got nothing like that. Anyways, the game takes place in America after an event called a Death Stranding, which is when the souls of the dead cross over into the world of the living. Now, a BT is made when someone dies in the world of Death Stranding, the soul will try to return to the body. And when this happens, that's when the BT is made. You can see this in a cutscene and also just in-game. When someone dies, the corpse will go into the ground, and then you'll notice it'll start raining. This results in creatures called BTs, also known as beach things, coming into our world. And when they come into contact and eat a living human, a nuclear-type explosion occurs called a void out. The Death Stranding results in the deaths of most of the population of America. The remaining people are either scattered around, part of a company called Bridges, or a terrorist called the Homo Demons.
There we go.
Sam works as a freelance, but after the president, his mother, dies from cancer, Sam is more or less forced to work for Bridges to help rebuild America by connecting people to their network. Throughout the game, most people are willing to join you, but there are a few who you need to do some convincing before they join up. I.e., side story. The terrorists, known as Homo Demons, are led by Higgs, a former delivery company owner gone crazy. He is shown to have the ability to control BTs, time fall, and can teleport around. This is due to his Dooms level, which a lot of different people have. Basically, Dooms allows you a connection to the other side on varying levels, and everyone with Dooms has an allergic reaction to chiralium, which is a resource in the world of Death Stranding. The allergic reaction is redness, and probably pain, in an affected area, which then moves up to the person's face and makes them cry. Level 1 is just the allergy, but level 2 lets you sense them, which is what Sam has. Fragile and Higgs levels are unknown, but are much higher than Sam's Doom's level, because they can teleport. Now, Timefall is rain that ages whatever it touches rapidly. So for instance, if Timefall gets showered on your face will age, like, it'll look like you're an old man in an instant. Now, this has a gameplay implication. When you're in rain, your cargo will degrade. Therefore, you need to carry repair spray on you so you can repair your cargo. Now, everything I've said up to this point is revealed at the beginning of the game. Simply put, it's purely world building. And by far, the best part of Death Stranding is the story experience. Throughout the game, you find out a lot about the world and the overall story. And it's truly a journey, as things you wouldn't expect to happen do in fact happen. And the ending is not as complex as people might make you think it is. They explain a lot. In fact, I don't really have any questions that I can think of at the top of my head, because they tell you everything. By far, one of the best stories I've experienced in a video game. Maybe even the best, but I'm not sure about that. And honestly, I'm a big fan of the cutscenes in Death Stranding, because at the beginning and the end, there's like 2-hour-long cutscenes of just straight story. And what adds to this is that all the characters in Death Stranding are actual actors and actresses. So it feels like a movie I'm watching in my video game. And a lot of people criticize this, but I only see it as a plus, to be honest, because it adds to the story experience of the game. And I almost forgot. Da baby! Basically, the baby is called a bridge baby, and this basically it strengthens the connection to the other side. It allows Sam to actually see the BTs, because on his own, he can only sense them. As stated before, the gameplay is the ultimate walking simulator. So what does that mean? That means the main mechanic of the game is walking, and your main enemy is the environment around you. That being said, you will be fighting with people and monsters, but I'll get into that later. When you walk, you really are supposed to pay attention to your surroundings and think about how you will approach getting to your destination. For example, you see this river? You can walk across it if it's shallow enough, but if you run out of stamina, you will be swept off your feet and lose your cargo. So if you don't want to do that, you could try using a ladder to get across, or maybe rocks to jump on it, or even bike over it. The principle applies to basically everything. If there's a cliff, you can try to Skyrim down it, but it would be wiser to use a ladder or a climbing rope instead, as to not kill yourself or damage the cargo. If a hill is too steep, you want to try and take it slow to keep your balance, because if you aren't careful, you will slip and you will tumble down, and all of your cargo goes down that hill. You need to think about what your moves and how also to plot your route, as this game handles waypoints in the best way I've ever seen in a video game. You make the waypoint yourself. Sounds simple, but in gameplay it's really fun. Prior to your delivery, you check the map and zoom in on the terrain to actually see what's coming up and plot your route accordingly. Of course, you don't have to follow the waypoint, but personally I always plotted a route that made a lot of sense for me. And that's the beauty of it. You're actually planning out your delivery. And if you're in an area connected to the chiral network, you can see if it is a BT or a mule zone, and you can route around it if you want to, or you can just go through it, you know. The choice is yours. Now in the game, your basic power progression is travel. First, you get an exoskeleton that makes it easier to carry packages. Then that leads to a bike, which leads to a truck, which leads to more exoskeletons. Later in the game, there's even zip lines and highways that you can use to make travel easier and easier. Leveling up also makes traveling easier. When you level up, things like your balance and carry load increase. And the only way to level up is to improve yourself. Think of it like Halo 3's leveling system. You can go up, but you can't go down. But to go up, you need to be good. It's similar. The stats you level are things you do in-game. Amount carried, like picking up how many random boxes you pick up, connection levels, it's stuff like that, you know? It's pretty cool. It makes a lot of sense for the game. And you'll notice that as you're playing, at first you're going to be leveling up really quickly. You're going to think, wow, this leveling is so easy. But at about level 120 out of like 300 something, it just stops. And that's when you really have to improve yourself and go out of your way to start leveling up. And that's where I feel the leveling shines. There isn't much else to say about the gameplay, except for the combat, which I'll get into now. Honestly, combat is serviceable, which in my opinion is fine because the game was not designed as an action game, but as a walking simulator, despite what Kojima will want you to believe. Combat doesn't matter because 90% of the time you aren't doing that. Now, that being said, I do wish combat was better, just because the combat portions would feel just so much better if the combat was better. Melee combat is kind of cool. You have a small pool of things that you can do. My favorite, beat the shit out of this guy, pick his package, bash his buddy's fucking skull in with it. Pretty fun if you ask me. You can also do stealth, sneak up on him, tie him up, beat him down. Now the gunplay on the other hand, this is really what I mean when I say the combat is serviceable. Because the gunplay is just very basic. It works, but it could have been so much better. The game, lacking some sort of cover system, really did in this gunplay. Because had it had a cover system, it would have felt fine. But without it, it feels bad, you know? Again, I don't think this really matters too much, considering the game's main purpose. But Kojima really downgraded his gunplay from Metal Gear Solid 5. Now, BTs, you actually fight them. And honestly, these are pretty fucking easy. Besides gunplay, I wish BTs had more going on. Most of the time, they don't really do anything outside of charging at you and a telegraphed one-shot insta-kill move. But when I think about it, considering the way movement works in Death Stranding, it might have had to be like this, because if it was harder, then finesse would have had to been added to the movement of Death Stranding. Now, the thing about BTs is that to fight them, first you need to get caught. And to get caught, it must rain. In gameplay, when it isn't raining, the enemy you can encounter are mirrors. But when it rains, you encounter BTs. Now, rain happens randomly. But when you get close to BT territory, it rains harder, and a cutscene will play with your scanner going up, alerting you that BTs are near. BTs in this state are ghost-like creatures that can sense your breathing, so you have to hold your breath when you get really close to them. If they detect you, they send out a pool of tar, and these tar people will try to pull you down. You can escape if you have enough stamina, but if you don't, you get pulled away, and you encounter the BT. When you get caught, you have two options: run or fight. Very simple. The BT area isn't huge, so if you need to, you can just run out and it ends the encounter. Now, if you choose to fight, your weapon of choice is hepmatic grenades, which are basically just grenades that use Sam's blood. Because in the story, we find out that BTs take damage when they come into contact with Sam's blood. Over the story, you will progress to guns that use Sam's blood as ammo, and also different types of grenades that use Sam's other bodily fluids, like his shit and piss. Now, outside of a BT fight, when they're in their ghost form, this is essentially a stealth game of hot and cold, if you will. When you're standing still and crouched, you can see the BTs in their ghost form. But when you're moving or you're holding your breath, you can't see them. So it becomes a game of hot and cold, where when you're standing still, you see their location, and then you move accordingly. And when the imprint has kind of like left your mind, you'll want to stand still again. And meanwhile, your little thingy on your shoulder, forgot the name of it, but it's going to be flapping, and it'll let you know how close the BTs are, depending on how fast it's going. If it's going super fast, they're pretty close and they can detect you. But if it's going only kind of quick, then they're a decent distance away and you're safe to take a breather. Because again, if you get too close, the way the BTs detect you is by your breath. And now if you get too close, the scanner will start to freak out. And well, you know the rest. Overall, I wish BTs were a bigger threat than they actually are in gameplay, because in the story, they're fucking terrifying. But in game, not so much. Especially this motherfucker. Now, real quick, I want to speak on the online, because I love the online. Basically, when you're online, you will never actually see or interact with another player, but you'll see what they leave behind. When you're in an area connected to the chiral network, ladders, ropes, vehicles, structures, and packages left behind by players are just left there for you to freely use. And you can even give them likes. And there's one other cool thing. When you hit the middle button on your PS4 controller, you yell out. Now you can use this to taunt mules, but even cooler, if you're near another player in that spot, you will actually get a call back. I really like how the online works in Death Stranding. It's perfect for the game. So I have 4 small points really quick that I want to make. 2 are positive, 2 are negative. That's not exactly the definition of nitpick, but this is my review, so you can go fuck yourself. 1. The cutscenes. Now, I'm not talking about story cutscenes. Those are great. I love those. What I'm talking about is shit like this! And this! And this! These little bite-sized cutscenes are super unnecessary. They can easily be background animation, but instead they are cutscenes that I need to waste time skipping. 2. The attention to detail is excellent. I love games with small details, and this game is fucking full of them. 3. The map should have been one open world. The map is cut into 3 zones. 2 are areas you actually play. The second one is the largest of the 3. And the third one is for a special point in the story. Now, this easily could have just been one map, and it would have been sick for the game to be just one big ass map with no load screens, because in gameplay, the game has almost no load screens. It's just for traveling between zones and such, you know, where load screens come into play. It's fine as is, because Zone 2 is freaking huge, but it cuts my immersion to see these load screens. 4. The soundtrack is perfect for the game. Honestly, I can't say anything else but that. Anytime a song randomly comes on, it fits the vibe perfectly and gets me immersed. Death Stranding is truly one of a kind. And while I certainly do not see it becoming a genre of its own like Kojima wants it to be, it is very unique and one I highly recommend. The secret is to come in with the mindset that is a slow, relaxing game, because it really is. It's very chill. If you come with the mindset that it's supposed to be like Metal Gear Solid or some action game, then you won't like it. But taking it slow and taking everything in, you'll enjoy it, I promise you. Unless, however, you really do not have the attention span for a slow game like Death Stranding. In that case, I'm sorry, because you are missing out. Although it is fair to say you don't like the gameplay, because it's straight up a walking simulator. Not everyone can be down with that. In fact, a lot of people can't be down with that. But to say it's a bad game or a low quality game is pretty ignorant. Death Stranding is both high quality and very good. It just isn't for everyone, and that's fine. But frankly, I really enjoyed playing this, and the story was excellent. And now, I want to play Kojima's past works. In fact, I have Metal Gear Solid 5 in my Steam library. Also, think about it like this. Kojima has made Metal Gear Solid for 17 years, and his first game away from Konami is this! That's insane! Imagine what other crazy shit he can come up with in the future. Now that he's free, personally, I'm looking forward to it. I give Death Stranding a 9 out of 10 spunkies. This game is excellent.